He draws here. Land 7, we'll see if the sun's going to come here. Gideon will target the Ruthless Knave. And he just says go. Looks like disallow, settle the wreckage, 2 other cards. Champion is going to attack Gideon down to 3. And I like this. You can't even settle the wreckage on the champion. It'll get sacrificed in response. Here's end step, Glimmer of Genius from David. Now, Paul didn't pull trigger on Scarab God. Is there something you think he's waiting for here?
I think he just doesn't want to get hit by a counterspell.
That makes sense.
In
the meantime,
he's just dealing
He's just dealing 2 damage, though. It feels like he could use more.
Yeah. It's probably one of those situations where he has a reason for not casting it, but you just kind of have to check David. One way or the other, David's just going to win this game with approach, or he's going to have the counterspell. The more time you give him, he's just going to find that counterspell, or he's going to find that approach.
And it looks like he can now flip that Search for Ascanta if he puts this card. Yes, regardless.
Yeah, he just has 7, so
he can keep it on top.
Yeah, it doesn't check if you actually bin something that turn, which is pretty nice.
If you resolve it, and then if you have 7, it flips. It's not if you put it. You don't have to put it in the graveyard to make it flip.
Yep.
So Gideon will plus again. And David has Approach of the Second Sun. Is he going to... And he's going to cast it here, leaving 1 mana up. He'll gain 7, go to 20. Next time he casts that spell, he's going to win the game. And there it goes. Tick-tock for Paul. He's going to get 20 damage in real fast.
Yep, and his deck is just really not equipped to do that. A lot of these approach decks, they do play some copies of Ipnu Rivulet to get yourself to the approach faster. David does not have that. It's not super relevant technology. It mostly plays with Scavenger Grounds is the idea. He's playing Field of Ruin as kind of his special land.
And looks like end step, Paul's going to sacrifice the champion to get some treasure to the Ruthless Knave.
He's going off.
I do like this. He'll go ahead and sacrifice the Knave to itself as well. I don't know about the flavor on that.
If he can make a Marionette Master and another treasure this turn.
I guess he just wins, huh? That's a really cool finish to the deck.
There are 2 Marionette Masters, something like that. I don't think he can cast fully, too.
Here's Scarab God. I guess the question would be, is David aware that Paul's deck has that kind of explosiveness to it?
Right.
Scarab God's really scary here. Gideon will plus targeting it. Allows him to end step Eternalize the champion. Or the Knave. Looks like he's going to Eternalize, targeting the champion. That's probably good enough to get hit by a Disallow. You see Disallow and Glimmer in David's hand. He can get very close to that Approach of the Second Sun again.
Glimmer going fully 4 cards down. Just activating Ascanta, doing the same.
I suppose he actually could let this resolve and just Glimmer and activate Ascanta both, and then just win.
Yeah, the only thing that could go wrong is if he just dies.
This turn?
Yes.
Okay, well, it makes sense. Then he's going to let this resolve, and he'll hold up the Disallow in case something goes wrong. A full 4 cards drawn from Paul Witcomb. It's a big turn, but likely not big enough.
Well, if Paul attacks with both creatures here and has mana to Marionette Master and bring it back with Scarab God, that looks lethal to me. David's going to need 2 pieces of interaction to deal with that. Gideon checked the Scarab God, but the Champion Whips can connect for 4. Marionette Master going to a 4/4 with 4 treasures. That's 16 damage.
All right, so Paul's going to untap. Eternalize another champion. He had discarded that off the first one. Draws 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think he's found Marionette Master yet. Discards a pair of lands. He's got an artifact in there.
Treasure
map. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other treasure synergy you'd see in the deck.
There's Marionette Master. It's 1 down. May just be there a turn too late. he's got to force David to use the disallow this turn. If David can just Glimmer and use Azcanta, he'll find approach this turn.
Right.
Legion's Landing. The one-man enchantment. I'll give him a 1/1 white vampire. A lot of good cards here. Here's another champion. I like what Paul's deck's doing.
Okay. Resolving Champion here. This will allow him to get the disallow if he just discards the Marionette Master. Because that activation of the Scarab God likely to be lethal here.
And that's what he's going to do. And there's actually an interesting thing here, which I like what Paul's done. So if you eternalize Marionette Master, or let's say, I was going to go back with actually going back to the Champion of Wits plays. I was going to say using it Scarab God to reanimate them plays much better around disallow. Either way, we're going to see Paul attempt to bring back Marionette Master right here using the Scarab God's ability. This is going to force David to disallow. But the problem is that it's just, when you disallow this ability, the Master just stays in the graveyard. It doesn't get exiled. So when Paul untaps again, he can just try to do that a bunch of times.
Yeah, given that David would have to tap 7 to win with approach, there's an argument that Paul should have just left up that Scarab God activation.
So Glimmer, 2 bottom. David is going to have to find another approach the regular way. David can cast out the Scarab God, but it looks like he did not find approach off that Glimmer. Well, didn't find a second copy, so he's still digging for that one that he put 7 cards down. He might be able to do it here. Cycles cast out and casts approach with exactly 7.
If Paul just left up that Scarab God activation, he actually could just win the game in response. Or actually, no, David at 14?
That would work. That would work.
Yep.
If David, so he leaves it up. He leaves up the 4 mana, and then says, "Hey, I dare you to cast Approach of the Second Sun."
Yep.
So game 1 does go over to David Thomas, but you're absolutely right. There was a window where we think Paul could have won.
Yep.
By leaving it up at instant speed, David can never safely tap 7 mana. Then Paul waits until his next turn when he has 16, 12 mana and just goes for it 3 times.
Yep. Though as we do to the sideboards, Paul's deck does improve significantly.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the interesting things about Blue-White Approach. It's such a linear deck. Normally control decks get better after sideboard. That's not usually true of this deck. It's so easy to do things against. And we get to see one of our reprints. It's a good one, but it's an oldie, but a very good one this matchup. Look at these first 7 cards in Paul's sideboard. This is fantastic for the matchup.
Yep, 4 negate, 3 duress. Those cards are excellent here.
That's
the rest
a
of the
nightmare,
stuff, you won't trust the Sunscourge Champion, the Fumigate. The Lost Legacy actually can come into play. You can name Approach, though David does have some stuff in his sideboard for that. Though his sideboard plan is not good enough against a deck like Esper Tokens, which has so much inevitability, and it just goes so wide so easily. But on David's side, he can bring in these 4 Regal Caracals as an alternate way to win the game.
Right.
That's better against a deck like Ramunap Red than it is against a deck like Esper Tokens.
So the danger with Lost Legacy is that Paul waits until David casts Approach the first time and then takes them out of his deck and says, "Hey, you played a 7 mana and gained 7. That's good job."
Yeah.
That's a really bad card.
Yeah, you're at like 20-something, whatever.
Yeah. So I like all 9 of those cards from Paul's side, right? 2 Legacy, 4 Negate, 3 Duress. With so much Negate and Duress, it's going to be so hard for David to ever resolve or Approach the Second Sun just seems kind of dead on arrival post-board here.
Yeah. And David can reach for these Torrential Gearhulks in his sideboards. Let's go fully down the list. You have 4 Real Caracal, 3 Slash of Talons, 3 Negate, 2 Torrential Gearhulk, a Disallow, a Gideon of the Trials, and a Settle the Wreckage. So he has some stuff that's good against regular beatdown decks. You know, Slash of Talons is good against a red beatdown deck. Real Caracal is the same. They don't really play against these go-wide token strategies. Paul can just shrug that off. Torrential Gearhulk is fine. You know, gives him some recurability, gets some more Glimmer Genius, compete on that front. Actually, the best card on the sideboard is a Disallow, just because it keeps Anointed Percentage off the table. You probably bring in the other Settle the Wreckage as well. You can stop yourself from getting pressured too much in combat. Yeah,
a lot of his answers don't line up that well. I didn't like Gideon of the Trials that game. I didn't feel like it did very much. Maybe Regal Caracals probably have to play, just because you can't just lose to, you can't count on Approach to win. So these Gearhulks and these Caracals all will come in. But I don't know that Caracal is going to win the game act, to be honest. Like, Paul just outscales it so quickly.
In the face of 1 Anointed Procession and most of the cards in Paul's deck, it's pretty easy to scale up against Real Caracal. You can keep pace with it very easily. You can go over the top of it relatively easily as well.
All right, so as this is our last open here in the month of September, we're going to go over some of our game night promos here from StarCityGames.com. It's one of your last chances to get the Vampire Night Fox. You see here the 2/2 flying vampire puppy. This token, these are given away, of course. Actually, foxes, the foxes aren't really puppies. They're close. That one's for October. So we're going to go over October, November, and then debut the December one as this month has come to a close. Vampire Night Fox will be given away starting next week here. These pins and tokens are given away as prizes for playing game nights at stores all around the country for participating stores. We have the 0 on the Tarmagoat coming out in November. You see here this 0-1. And the new one for December here, this is everyone's favorite soldier from Theros. It's the Akrokan Crusader.
Timely.
Yeah, I mean, if I said it's a creature from Theros, can you guess it?
Fresh in everyone's mind.
Yeah, the 1/1 red heroic creature that makes
1/1 haste
soldiers.
tokens.
Yeah, well now it can make frog tokens. You can get these, of course, by participating stores. You can find them near you at StarCityGames.com/game night.
Love the pun.
Just the timing.
Someone dug deep for that one, or
it's
just
too good. It's too good.
Hasn't gotten over Theros standard.
I really liked Theros. That guy didn't even see play in Theros standard.
It did.
Like a little.
It was in some of the heroic decks. I can see why you wouldn't remember it.
Blue-white heroic ended up being the main heroic deck.
I think it was in some of Tom Ross's decks, wasn't it?
Probably. It's red. It's a 1-drop.
Targeted it with Titan Strength.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
Those sound like cards.
That sounds like something he'd be doing in a deck. Paul on 6 cards as he's going to be on the play here for the second game. And this Esper Token's, I think, one of the more hyped new decks. And for good reason. That Marionette Master kill that Paul threatened, that's really neat.
Yes. Yeah, this is something, this might actually be exactly or close to a list that Eric Hawkins tweeted out this week. He was going to come this weekend, but got a little under the weather for a 16-hour drive, which for me is like I woke up a half hour late and I was a little cranky. That's enough. That's a deal breaker.
Wait, I don't know. Why did I sign up to do this?
No, thank you. What am I doing with my life?
There we see Marionette Master, second land from Paul. He has his 3 colors set up. Those are his only lands right now. I believe he does have a champion if he can find that 3rd land here. But he's going to miss.
Yikes.
Draws Lost Legacy.
He has some time.
Yeah, it's not like Approach is going to punish you too hard.
Mm-hmm. Though in this kind of matchup, he does have to eventually get something going and be able to leave up counter spells. If you wait long enough, David he can cast his relevant stuff and leave up counter magic.
Here we go. Land 3 is a Concealed Courtyard from Paul. It's a great one indeed. And going to go ahead with a 3-drop that'll get censored immediately.
Trying to be on the Ruthless Knave beatdown plan. No such luck.
I know you said it was his best beatdown creature. That 3 power for 3. What a rate.
This guy brings the heat.
I kind of like it as a test spell, though. Look, if he does have Champion of Wits, and you see him move it to the front, that's the one he needs to resolve.
Yeah, and like David had to censor it because it's a 3/2.
Well, how about this 2-1? Now that'll get Supreme Willed. No land 5 for David. We see if he's going to go ahead and search for one. He does not, says go. I wonder if he was going to main face maybe just Supreme Will to try to find it. Paul does hit a land. I'm going to say I thought he hit a land. He's going to hit Treasure Map. So now we get to see another card here from Ixalan. So 2-mana artifact. 1 tap, scry 1. Put a landmark counter, love the name, on Treasure Map. Then if there are 3 or more landmark treasure counters, you're going to find the treasure. So what does that mean? That means you remove the counters and you transform Treasure Map and you get 3 treasure tokens. And Treasure Map transforms
into Treasure Cove.
We'll look at Treasure Cove. In the meantime, David's going to cast Regal Caracal. That one's not a new one, but it's going to be good here. 7 power worth of creatures is what the cat's going to bring.
And in this kind of game where Paul has stumbled significantly, the Caracal puts David very far in front.
Yeah, this Regal Caracal, not a great win con here for David's deck in that he doesn't have any follow-up for it, but maybe it can deal 20 points on its own.
If he gains like 14 life,
yeah,
that makes it really hard to actually close the game with the combo kill.
Yeah, it looks like David has untapped land and Torrential Gearhulk for next turn. That combined with the Caracal might be enough to just win with the beatdown plan.
Yeah, I mean, real Caracal is just 7 power of creatures.
Right.
Paul's not getting rid of it. His answer to it is to have board parity or something like that.
Which in a game where Paul was making and establishing threats wouldn't be too hard to do, but playing off the back foot like this, it's going to be hard for him to you know, you said before he can't remove the 3/3, so the tokens will be 2/2s. It's just a lot of power. And here's Lost Legacy from Paul. It's the wrong kind of card here.
Ooh, look at that hand.
He named Approach at the second sun. That's going to miss 2 Torrential Gearhulks and land 6 in Thomas's hand. That's a nightmare for Paul to see.
And 2 Settled Wreckage, a kicker.
for just in case Paul starts attacking.
He had the Ruthless Knave covered the whole time.
And it looks like David, has he boarded out one of his 3 approaches?
Sure. He brought in all these Regal Caracals.
Yeah, looks like he has.
And this is certainly a matchup where it makes sense to go lighter on that stuff. You see blue mana, you see black mana. You're going to get negated. You're going to get duressed.
And we see the issue here is with the discard spell and Lost Legacies that there's no board presence to it. And Paul's behind on the board. This isn't going to solve the Caracal problem. And you see Paul, he takes 7 this turn. I mean, this might even just be set up for a near kill, right? David has Gearhulk flashing back Supreme Will for whatever Paul does. He has Gearhulk flashing back Supreme Will for the next spell, and that should be lethal.
Right. Unfortunately, not Gearhulk for Glimmer of Genius, much to the dismay of my bingo card.
Well, it's interesting, right? This is we've seen 2 Glimmer decks, and these 2 sideboarded Gearhulks are the only Gearhulks that were registered in either of them.
Yep. And one thing I will say about this Lost Legacy here, you can look at this 2 ways. Of course, David's lateral shift in win conditions makes the Lost Legacy kind of embarrassing just because of the Regal Caracal. But if you look at the texture of Game 1, if Paul just had a negate up for the first or the second approach of the second Suns, it's pretty easy for him to just close the game with that. Negate is just so good and so much better in this matchup that I don't even know if you should have the Lost Legacy in the sideboard.
If you need it, just you already have... There are some problems with playing a blue-white approach right now in Standard in that Duress and Negate both being legal is really scary for your deck.
Yes.
The fact that David had to sideboard into separate win conditions is concerning. End step, David plays Gearhulk, flashing back Supreme Will, looking at the top 4, puts, I believe, another Supreme Will into his hand. Sounds great.
Not bad.
And it looks like he's going to try to close us out on 2 attacks. Ryan, what are your thoughts on the treasure map that Paul's played? I know it's not been good this game because he was behind. How do you feel about it just in general?
Treasure map's great. If you can flip into Treasure Cove when you control Anointed Procession, you get 6 treasures. You can always sacrifice them to draw a card, or it's pretty easy to close the game with Marionette Master from there.
Do you think we'll see it in play outside of the Esper Tokens deck? Can you just play it, let's say, in your Blue-White Approach deck?
In theory, I mean, the Scry 1 matters, the extra land matters. You're not really otherwise making treasures, which the Esper Tokens deck is with the Ruthless Knaves and what have you. So it does lose some value there. This card seems reasonable.
The 7 power from Caracal will be joined by Gearhulk. That puts Paul down to 1. He can crack treasure map now on end step. He'll have a lot of mana. But he's got a lot of things to answer and no real sweeper. I guess in a control deck, something like David Thomas's, the issue is that treasure map is competing with Search for Azcanta for the same spot. You know, kind of a 2-mana value card that eventually turns into a land.
Why not both?
It's fair enough. You can't really play, if you wanted, you get to have 2 Search for Azcanta. You can't really play more. Gearhulk flashing back Supreme Will should end the game here.
Oh, those treasures can fight a counter war with the spell that Gearhulk flashes back, I suppose. Not of much consequence.
And that's still going to be lethal. So, game and match go to David Thomas playing Blue-White Approach. He cruises, despite what I actually thought would be a